Hi, and welcome to Comics from the Ark. Devin and Jeff coming to you with our reviews for the week of September 11th. I would like to lead in with the fact that we had just recently lost John Cassidy, a great artist who contributed to the X-Men lore with his run on Astonishing X-Men. I actually used one of those images for my wedding program, and so it has kind of an impact for me. And then, of course, we also lost...
way worse than that one now, though.
And then we also lost James Earl Jones, legendary voice and just a wonderful person.
I was thinking about it, how many people lost their father in that, not just Luke, but, Eddie Murphy's character, Simba.
Yeah, Simba. Jonathan Taylor Thomas lost his dad.
Yep.
Well, actually, it's the second time he lost that dad. Mufasa did die.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, lost it. He got to pre-lose him, so, he got him prepared for the real loss. So.
There were a lot of different tributes that I had seen. One was a John Cassidy drawing of Darth Vader. And so it kind of encapsulated both. And then someone else had taken the scene from The Simpsons where Lisa runs out into the field and Bleeding Gums Murphy and James Earl Jones and Mufasa and Darth Vader all pop up, and they're all like throwing out their trademark lines, and it was very beautiful. And
I saw one,
and it made me chuckle, and I would like to think that that's how he would want to be remembered.
Well, and I saw one where, and I don't know, maybe they did do this later on, but I don't think they did, but they replaced the Force Ghost with James Earl Jones.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Well, it was somebody like photoshopped it. It was pretty awesome looking.
So did they use the image from Conan the Barbarian?
I don't know what they used for the James Earl Jones image. I'll dig it out and show you a little later, but it was pretty slick. I mean, they did a really good job shading it in the whole 9 yards.
So anyway, that's part of the mindset that we're coming into this episode with. Big loss.
Anesthesia today too.
Woo! And yes, Devin was put under and explored.
Yeah, the anesthesia is still kicking a little bit, so this is going to get weird.
Did the scopes touch in the middle?
I don't think so.
But maybe later.
Yeah. But no,
well, on that note,
it was odd. It was I'm feeling it way later than I usually do when I get anesthesia, But normally I get a general. This was like some sort of Twilight thing or something. So, but anyway, yeah.
They used a really big mallet this time.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't remember much. That's all that counts.
So, for this week.
All right, yeah, this week, it's kind of a light week for me, really, as far as on the independent side. Not a lot of stuff that's my go-to norm. Garfield, though, was one of them. Going back to the Kaboom stuff. Kind of reliving the childhood, and then promptly getting into the book and realizing I'm confused because I haven't kept up with the current times of Garfield, apparently. Very specifically, I mean, well, the first one I actually remembered a little bit of. It's an entire story about trying to make the worst Monday ever for Garfield. And basically, they work all the way through it and they get to the end of the whole thing and they've tried everything they can. And, Garfield's grabbing something from our door and it's like, man, this is like the weirdest Tuesday I've ever had. And so it's just kind of that thing, but I recognize all the characters. And then we get into the second one, and at first I thought I was staring at the Garfield of now, because I mean Garfield evolved dramatically over the years as far as look. It's kind of like if you look at Rainbow Bright or My Little Pony or anything else, the evolution of all of them is very substantial from the 1980s to current.
I will say that my favorite version of Rainbow Bright was the underground work that they did, when she was more edgy and cutting.
Yeah.
Trend cutting and truly edgy.
Yeah.
Rainbow Bright was quite the bitch before, Hallmark fucked her up.
Yeah, exactly. But so we get into the second one, and like I said, I see what looks like a year one Garfield sitting at the table with the current Garfield, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm staring at here. I mean, what if they
Holy shit, the anesthesia is still kicking it.
And well, more specifically, it was like, have they done a thing where they're accepting that Garfield has changed so much that there's two distinct versions, or what is it? Well, come to find out, apparently it's the dad. So Vic, I guess, is his name. So in case people, for everybody else that knew out there beside me, maybe that one other guy that's stuck under a bigger rock than I am, it was introduced in like the Garfield movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess he was the deuteragonist in the movie itself. So,
and for those who don't know that term, it's the secondary opposition.
Yeah. Yep.
Not the primary opposition, secondary.
Yeah, you would have an antagonist and then a deuteragonist. I mean, if you kept going down the line, you'd get to a
tertiary
sextagonist.
Maybe.
No, that actually is one. It would be 6.
Yeah, but the way you said it made it sound a little.
But when you say 6 in the form of like in its full form,
I know.
Yeah, it actually is spelled that way. Anyway, beside the point. It's still just a really fun story again this time with the Garfield stuff. They kept it very simple. The first one was about making a Monday bat that turned out not to even be a Monday. Second one was a deal is made from John that he will provide a lasagna every time one of the two of them removes a mouse in the house. Well, apparently Garfield's father is pretty much an alley cat, and so rounds up all 12 mice in the house immediately and throws them outside and gets his 12 lasagnas and is super happy about it. And Garfield's like searching around, can't find one, ends up going outside and makes a deal with the mice where he kind of leaves the back door open a little bit, and they kind of come through, he gets to catch them one at a time, and he gives them a little bit of a scrap off of his lasagna every time, and like everything always. And I think it's actually a really interesting look, and it explains on a very simple level how quickly somebody can take a idea that could be used in moderation and reused again and overkill it very, very quickly just to satisfy an immediate lust for whatever it is they want.
Why do I feel like this isn't a hypothetical that you're bringing up?
Oh no, it actually it kind of is, but I mean you can see it everywhere you look. It's the I want everything now attitude versus the I'm willing to go the long haul to make sure I'm taken care of. Which
or bucking a trend so that you get yours at the cost of everybody else. Who follow the rules getting.
Well, and more specifically, Garfield takes it to the point where they're literally. He's kicking them out and they're running around to the back, and there's constantly a line of like mice just behind him. And Vic calls out, he's like, weren't there just 12 here before? Now there's like 14 or something like that, I think is what it was. And he figures out what's going on and includes John in, and so Garfield loses his free ticket altogether because of his immediate greed for wanting, what do they call it when you're shopping?
Instant gratification?
Instant gratification, thank you. Because of his lust for instant gratification, he loses everything in the long run.
I wonder how many people are actually going to acknowledge that aspect of it.
Interesting you bring that up. There's a reason I went that deep on it and really thought about it from that level. This is a Kaboom comic book. All right? This is literally made for learning age children.
Right.
All right? Which is the same thing like the X-Men were made for in the 60s. How many kids put together at that point why they all of a sudden were a little bit better with the civil rights movements than they were the weeks before? You see what I'm saying? It's teaching a lesson without shoving it down the throat.
And as a former teacher, I applaud that.
Mm-hmm.
as a jaded adult in modern society, I fear that not everyone's going to key in on that anymore. Our reading for comprehension is woefully incomplete now.
Well, and that's what's wonderful about the way this is done. You can get the story without the words. If you just follow the pictures, you see what happens. No matter how you look at this
Great for visual representation.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful visual representation. You see the reward, you see the initial clearing of the mice, you see the reward being given, then you see the handshake between the mouse and Garfield, and then you see it slowly get out of control, and it's all done beautifully through the pictures while John is running himself ragged, creating lasagna after lasagna after lasagna, and
I won't lie, it sounds really good right now.
Right, but. So regardless if the parents are catching it, if they pick this up for a kid, it's still teaching a lesson. It's like reading, anything that, it would be along those lines. Emperor's New Clothes, things like that.
Well, and I, again, as a parent and a former teacher,
yeah,
even if one kid picks up on it and learns from it, then
absolutely.
That makes it worth it.
Absolutely, and that's a win right there. Because that maybe that 1 in 100 that gets it, that's the 1 in 100 that's going to make a difference on a certain aspect of society that this is going to have something to do with.
Quite possibly.
So,
I mean, reading is the building block of civilization.
Exactly. Well, and for example, like you defined deuteragonist. A lot of people don't know words like that because those are things that are brought up in comics. They're brought up in cartoons, and weirdly enough, a lot of times the cartoons, they kind of explain it not by just defining it openly at the time, but in a roundabout way in the next few lines of the show.
Right. Then you're picking up from context, and then you're listening for comprehension and reading for comprehension and putting pieces together and becoming an active viewer.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like once you can get the context of it, it's the same as, deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphics. Once you have the base context of certain aspects of it, you can start putting together the entirety of the story.
Once you make the reader feel engaged, then you have truly done your job.
Yeah. And so for that, I really do applaud Kaboom and this book specifically. I feel both stories did a really good job, just letting a kid be a kid reading it, but at the same time, kind of giving that little bit of, integrity life lesson that goes along with it, or the little bit of character, from like it's been an odd Tuesday type thing, instead of just going, man, it's been so screwed up today. I mean, because they literally messed with him all day long.
Right.
But he just went, it's just been a weird day,
Well, and I can't speak for you, but I know that when I was a kid, He-Man and G.I. Joe had the public service announcements at the end. And most of that was to avoid regulation because it wasn't supposed to be a half-hour commercial that, they were trying to say, hey, we're showing something educational, and then that is the important thing of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And, they were doing it to sidestep regulations, but in my particular case, there were actually a couple of things that I took to heart, and I may have at some point realized that it was a little hokey to be learning life lessons from a cartoon, but all the same, it had to come from somewhere. Someone felt that it was valuable enough to put it into a story.
Yeah.
And so at least someone acknowledged it, and so I felt like there was at least someone out there who understood what I was going through in some manner.
Yeah. Well, and more specifically, I mean, you brought up a really good point, and the fact it's not just those. Everything from the era, shapes us, from the era that you grow up in shapes you. For me, for example, it was like the Saturday morning cartoons and the PSAs and
One to grow on.
the movie that came on at like what was it, like 11 o'clock after all the cartoons were over.
Oh god.
It was usually like a Christy McNichol movie, which I mean that was the upside to it. You got Christy McNichol. The downside was usually
You
the
had to
movie
learn
was super
something.
boring. Yeah. And then on the other side of the house, you had people like me. I was of course, huge wrestling fan, especially, at first I started watching a little bit and then the cartoon came out and I was all in. That was it for me.
Do you know who voiced Hulk Hogan in Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling? Brad Garrett.
Really?
Yeah.
That is interesting.
And once I found that out, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's crazy. But, so you look at, that type of thing, and so we were being, kind of fed everything from patriotism to good versus evil to
Standing up for your friends.
standing up for your friends.
I am a real American.
Never hit a woman, because if you do, there are consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, take a look at
It's
that.
kind of like in the horror movies. You kept your virginity and you stayed alive.
Yeah. Well, more specifically, I specifically remember this because, it was right around, kind of teen era for me, and I'll be the first to admit, I've been a geek for all this stuff, wrestling, comics, gaming, all of it for, pretty much since I was able to breathe. But, I remember watching it, and they did an angle where Macho Man basically physically assaulted Miss Elizabeth, and like it immediately crowd lost it, and there was an immediate stand up for her, and she was carried out of the arena, and so on and so forth, and it was just, it taught you at that moment that there is no place it's right to do this, and so, granted, I mean, they kind of undid some of it later on when they did the big makeup thing between the two of them, and et cetera, but yeah, because, sorry, once you do that, you're going to do that again. But,
I think Hank Pym would disagree with you, but,
Yeah, that's fine and dandy, but it's like anything else in life. It's kind of, if you cross the line once, you're much more likely to cross that line again.
Well, if you get a divorce, you're more likely to get a divorce. You've faced the stigma and you've came out the other side, and now it's an option. Whereas for other people, they're like, "Oh, I can't do that." That's nuclear. That's the nuclear level. Is dropping the bomb on the marriage. For people who've done it before, then they're like, "Fuck it."
Yeah, why not? Screw it. Exactly. Which goes back to the instant gratification thing we were talking about.
That's what led to the divorce. So.
Well, more specifically, I mean, you're fighting, you're having a bad few days, bad few weeks, whatever, things like that. And there's this magical thing you can do. And it's... In some aspects, it has been used. I've watched it multiple times as an instant gratification, like you guys might have been able to just annul that instead, type thing.
I want to go back a couple points.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the evolution of Garfield and how he looked at the very beginning versus what he currently looks like, and you thought it was a conversation between old version and new version.
We'll get Vic and him right beside each other there if you want to set that up, and because it's a really good.
Fatter. Garfield, the original version of Garfield was a little more droopy, in my opinion.
Oh, and he is fat as hell too, like not just rotund, but actually legitimately flowing fat.
And we're referring to here.
Yeah.
But what I was actually going to point out was the fact that there is an instance where how a character was drawn was changed over time and actually influenced the storyline. was back when the New Teen Titans came out. George Perez had started drawing Raven in this elegant way, but over time he was trying to make her a little harsher, a little more dark, and the hairline started receding, the cheeks got more sunk in, and over time people were writing in and they were noticing her appearance was changing, but it wasn't like a change in artist situation. He was just modifying how she looked, and they were all thinking, well, God, something's happening to her to make this a subtle change.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of one of those things where they're like, well, that's not what we planned, but, that's not a bad idea. And then they ran with it. And we don't have subtle buildup anymore in our comics. We have a storyline, and when the storyline's over, we completely just shut it down, ship it off, and move on to the next storyline. We pick up and start anew. There's no...
How many new ASMs have there been at Restart of One since 2020? I mean, how many volumes? Like 4?
Something like that. And even then, very rarely in Amazing Spider-Man now do they mention that at one point Peter Parker was one of the richest people on the planet, and he owned this giant company that put out technology and social media, and it had all of this going for them, and now he is a lab assistant. No one's kind of going, well, isn't that a little strange? Nope, we're just moving on. And eventually...
It could be like a Warren Buffett situation.
I don't think that I could ever see Warren Buffett going back to flipping burgers or,
And like back in the day, he would do stuff like that.
No, I get that, but I'm saying that if he lost all of his money tomorrow, it's not like he would just go back to flipping burgers and people would ignore the past 20, 30, 40 years,
Yeah.
But that's what's happening with Peter Parker now. It's like, okay, that version came to an end. We're moving on.
So the money just went away after that?
He had to pay off lawsuits and what have you. One of the things that he had done was he used he had a backdoor in everybody's phones, and it was kind of that scene in The Dark Knight when Batman used all the cell phones as like a radar thing. Well, this time Peter Parker had done it, and everybody was like, my technology put out by your company was acting in this way. I want my money back. I'm suing you for damages. Blah, blah, blah. Money gone,
But he still had the tech and everything.
I'm sure that it got recalled or people immediately dumped it. Although they never did return to the Uncle Ben Foundation that...
Okay, I would like to point out real quick here on this one. And we're going to go ahead, we'll just go ahead and transition into some other crap here, because this one actually intrigues me. You take a look at the way things are today. We have proven time and again that Amazon and Google and Apple and Facebook and Instagram, all these companies are listening to us through our phones. And we are getting targeted advertising based on what they get. It has nothing to do with searches a lot of the time. It's in those terms that you accept, it's like, we can listen to your conversations and figure out what to do for you.
I read a news article, and again, I never did any of the follow-up research, but it said, technically it's not listening to you. It's
picking up keywords.
If I like certain comics or certain shows or certain movies on my Facebook profile, it is, that there's a pin on my phone now that's saying, okay, this is all the information for this phone. And then it's using my location and seeing that I'm interacting with you. And it's saying, okay, if I spend any significant amount of time to you, then chances are maybe I have recommended this comic or this TV show.
Well, here's an interesting one for you.
And so then all of a sudden, after I get done talking about XYZ, then you start noticing it on your phone because I spent a lot of time in your proximity, and now it's going to start.
I think it listens for keywords, maybe not to entire conversations. If I remember right, that's one of the things they were talking about in some of the lawsuits and stuff. But anyway, there's an end point to this because, real quick to bring up, when our exhaust fan for our restaurant went out a few weeks ago.
Okay.
We were talking about it. Nobody had done anything yet. We were kind of discussing, who we should call, things like that. We hadn't really looked anything up. And as soon as I picked up my phone and I had opened Facebook because it dinged at me, the first sponsored advertisement on there was for web restaurant for exhaust fans. I was creeped out, dude. Like, seriously. But the point is, I mean, you could be right. Either way, it proves that they're doing things that, are just on the edge and nefarious to really push that. Which it sounds exactly what Peter was kind of doing.
All right.
And yet we forgive them time and time and time again. We continue to use Google. We continue to use Facebook, Instagram, all these. We don't turn away from them.
Well, okay.
My question is,
would you use Bing instead of Google?
The only reason I don't use Bing is because mostly I've just used Google for so long.
That's going to be part of it. Part of it is maybe Bing doesn't work as well or give the results that people are looking for.
But the point is, he had something obviously the entire world loved, and the track record with Google and the stuff that people love is that it can stick around after a thing like that. So they are legitimately, or not legitimately, they are taking a look at it and drawing the wrong conclusion that the company would just die. It would cease to exist. No. It would probably get repackaged under a new LLC name or something like that, or new corporation, and then be relaunched without the bugs in it or something. It's ludicrous to say, for like you said, for it to just go away.
Wasn't there a woman who had started a business, and she grew to be one of the fastest millionaire, billionaire, whatever, but it turned out that what she was doing was scamish. I wish I could remember more of the details.
But even if you're talking millionaire, you're talking what you said was Peter was one of the richest people
absolutely
on the planet. Right. And that's a lot different than a millionaire, billionaire. That's a whole different level up there.
But I'm just saying is that the moment that they found out what she was doing was a scam, immediately cancel culture, shut her down.
Yeah.
She's tied up in lawsuits, and then her value has dropped to nothing, and I kind of wonder, yes, I said that he was one of the richest people on the planet.
Yeah, which is a different
ball game. But again, it's a convenient out for the writers who want to reset him back to the I have no good luck.
But it's a really crappy job of doing so. I mean,
that was a different volume. That was a different writer, and now everybody else who gets to do this can conveniently say, well, it wasn't my decision to do it, but I'm going to run with it.
Yeah, well, it's like you were saying. They just take the easy out on it over and over again. And I'll be the first to admit, even independents are doing that on a constant basis. I mean, they keep more continuity, but take a look at, my Hellboy stuff. It's like a 2-parter here, a 4-parter there, a couple of tie-ins. It's nothing. There's no true ongoing. I mean, my one actual true ongoing is 2000 AD. I mean, and we're on issue 2000 and something or 3000. It's ridiculous at this point.
Well, and you can't tell me that if Mark Zuckerberg was walking down the street that at least one person would go, hey, isn't that Mark Zuckerberg? And someone, would probably inevitably go, hey, buddy, you owe me money for this, or hey, I love water. None of that has ever happened to Peter. He's walking down the street, and everybody is just like, oh, I don't know who that guy is. Never mind, he owned, a third of the planet at one time, or whatever.
Well, and it sounded like he was kind of a household name, and which means he would have been kind of a household face as well.
Well, and he had a product line called webware, it was interwoven, and it's like, all right, and everybody had, like Leela's little strap on. So, you would think that somebody would like at least go, "Hey, wait a minute, didn't you invent that crap?" Or
Yeah.
But no, we're just moving on,
That's
and
what I'm saying.
we
when you
we
look at the
didn't
big
regress
picture-
them back to being a high school student, but we've taken away his wife, his child, his fortune, and all of this other stuff.
Is his degree still in place?
Actually, they disputed that because when Doc Ock was in Peter's body, he had gone back to previous research that he had done as Otto Octavius and used that for his thesis. And someone was like, "Hey, you're stealing the work of this person," and they then took him
Yeah.
or not took him in for breaking the law, but they repealed it and they said, listen, you're
It was plagiarism. Yeah.
plagiarism. And so they did some angle of that too, which
Okay.
that one I could kind of, at least that one made sense.
Yeah, but yeah, the rest of it, you're right. Though. But anyway, what did you have this week?
This particular week I said review instead of our picks because although I really wanted to read Uncanny X-Men as my review, I feel like it's probably going to be the better book. We have Wolverine #1 coming out, and I've kind of made it my mission that I'm going to at least hit hit the books and try to, break down each and every one. Wolverine. This starts off with a notice that this actually takes place prior to the events of X-Men #1 and Uncanny X-Men 1. So this is, even though it came out afterwards, they're like, okay, we're leaning somewhere. But this happened before all of that. After the island fell, Logan was pretty much like, I'm done with this backstabbing. I'm tired of having to be the sole supporter of the world. I'm tired of, fighting this endless fight. I'm tired of everything and everyone. And so he runs off to the Canadian wilderness and he builds a new family for himself, and I'm just gonna leave it like that. And we have a villain hunting Wolverine down to exact revenge. We also have Nightcrawler searching for Wolverine because although Wolverine has intentionally dropped off the map and wants to be left alone, Kurt is like, he's my friend. I want to make sure that he's doing all right. I need to save him from himself.
Yeah.
Because I know how he is. And so all of that kind of converges all at once. And as much as Wolverine was trying to escape the world and just be like, I'm done with all this pettiness, it's never that simple. You can never just drop all your responsibilities and go off and just do your own thing.
Yeah.
The world will come a-calling, and that's what happened in this issue. The fight between Wolverine and the villain awakens something in the wood. And prior to reading this, there was a little blurb that I had read that said, this is a key issue and a jumping on point, and it's an introduction to something major. You have to get on board with this issue.
Did they do any type of cameo or anything? Regardless of, not saying
I do not want to spoil anything.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is there an actual cameo, or is it more of a there's something coming? Dun, dun, dun.
There is an appearance of something.
Okay.
And you could even point to it and saying, okay, well, this is such and such. It was still kind of ambiguous, and there is a last page reveal, but they didn't do a great job of saying this is what you're looking at. And sometimes with these issues, you have to read the recap of the following issue to go, oh, that's what they were going for, or that's what it was intended to be. Because sometimes It's
Yeah,
not
but they do
perfectly
give
clear.
an image of
They
whatever.
they give an image of something new.
Okay.
New. The writing for the issue was solid. At the end, the writer acknowledges that he was a big fan of Wolverine growing up, and he wanted to get back to basics and hit some of the major points of Wolverine. It even talks about how in the next issue we're going to bring back Wendigo.
Okay.
So spoiler for that one, but I'm sure that that's going to be part of the disclosure.
Yeah.
So if you've looked at previews, you already knew that, so
Yeah.
I didn't spoil anything. Anyway, the art was good. If there was one little nitpicky thing that I didn't like how they drew Wolverine's hair. I felt like they made it a little too big. Wolverine has that bowed out point and then curve back in, like his mask, but they made it a little big. I mean, they should have taken it down, maybe 15%.
Like reverse mohawking.
I was reminded of Bozo the Clown, honestly. Like, if you took Bozo the Clown's hair and kind of just popped it up a little bit,
Yeah.
that's kind of what it felt like.
I was thinking like it could be used as a channel to put a mohawk into. Like gives you that perfect little.
Like when it looks like something Moon Knight would throw as a weapon.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
But
maybe that's the point. He's kind of Moon Knight-ish now.
Moon Knight-ish. Moon 19, because I'm old. Anyway, it was solid.
Yeah, Bruce
it was solid writing. I like the art with the exception of the hair. Again, nitpick. And it felt like we were kind of maybe not boiling it down to the very bare bones essence.
Yeah.
But I felt like we kind of. There is so much history to Wolverine. He's a samurai. He's a former, spook. He was a former this, a former that, and former everything. My God, this guy's been everything but a fucking rodeo clown. And so they just avoided that.
Look at the lifespan. I mean,
right?
There's a reason he's done everything. I mean,
I've been a teacher and a construction worker and a bank teller and a dispatcher, but
if you added a whole bunch of time to our lives, how much, especially if we could forever be able to do what we were able to do when we were younger, I mean, dear Lord, I mean, we would be unstoppable.
So they boil it down to he's lived a long time and he's tired of the bullshit. And I get that. I haven't been alive as long as he has, and I'm tired of the bullshit. Mm-hmm. So I get it. I want to run off and start a new life and just say to hell with everything. And I know that wouldn't work for me either. And so there is that relatability to this. And for Wolverine's not one of the characters that I follow hardcore. And honestly, with all the crap that, I mean, he's done everything, and at a certain point in time, he's somewhere in between Batman and Superman as far as just getting too ridiculous, in my opinion. Give me Blue Beetle, give me Plastic Man, give me someone I could relate to.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, I can relate, and it was fleeting, but there was that moment where I had a toehold into it and said, okay, I get this aspect.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Fair enough.
And so it was a decent enough read, and I will continue reading it for a little while to see where we're headed. Admittedly, I'm not a huge Wolverine fan, but if the story is good, I'll stick with it.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to see how back to basics we get with this. Plus, I mean, it's Nightcrawler. I mean, nothing else, for God's sakes, pick it up for Nightcrawler. Buy 3 copies.
Right on. Cool.
All right. So, that's it for me.
Yeah, that's all I got for today.
Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully we entertain enough that you'll be back next week. Thank you, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.